John, I'd love to welcome you to the Exit Plan Summit.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah, happy to have you. So we connected probably 2017 actually through the Value Builder program at a conference
Yeah.
in Vancouver. So that's how we know each other. But your business focuses mostly on the coaching side, getting people ramped up and ready to sell. And then just for a little bit of background, so you're the founder of the W5 Business Coaching Program, and then you coach 250 executives to getting their businesses ready to sell or actually just grow their companies. You're a TEDx speaker, which is I direct people to your LinkedIn. They can go to your TEDx talk, and then you're also a Canada Trusted Advisor. So we're in good hands during the conversation here. But perhaps maybe just give people a little bit of background of how you got into the coaching space.
I've been coaching since 2004, but the other answer, which is also true, is all of my life. It was Steve Jobs who said you can only connect the dots going backwards. And so when I started coaching, I had one of those middle of the night epiphanies and realized, oh man, I've always been a coach. And I was connecting the dots. I'm the eldest of 8 children, so that kind of casts you in a role pretty early in life. In high school, I knew I wanted to be a teacher, but the idea of wearing a Harris tweed coat wasn't very appealing to me. In the early 80s, I learned something called the Socratic method of leadership. So Socrates had it, the best way to help somebody is to help them figure it out. And that's what coaching is, right? I'm not in the you should business. I'm in the business of helping people figure out what their options are, what sometimes to reframe their thinking to see it in a different way. And so I've been coaching all my life, and I just was lucky to kind of fall into it one time and realize that everything I'd ever done in my life was designed to get me to the place where coaching became my profession and not just my passion.
Yeah. And then what is it? How come the business coaching specifically? What got you into that space?
I've had a long business career and wanted to get out of kind of. I was the president of a very large business, $3 billion in revenue, and felt like I wanted to row my own canoe, and so I was searching for a way to do that, and stumbled into coaching, and that was a very lucky thing for me. Get to a place where I set my own hours, do my own thing, and no longer have a bunch of people directing me on what to do.
For sure. So what I kind of to frame our conversation today, our topic is how can coaching help with your exit? And maybe just
Right.
kind of from the high level, we'll touch on that, and then we can kind of dig into a little bit more nuanced questions.
Sure.
Mhm.
Um, most business owners don't spend much of their time thinking about their exit. It's
Mhm.
only when it starts to get to the horizon that they start thinking, oh, maybe it's time for me to start thinking about it. But let me tell you a story that might give you some perspective about this. It's a guy named Bert. Bert lived in a home in Lake Forest, Illinois, beautiful home. 10-minute walk to the Lake Michigan, 10-minute walk to the Village Square, 45-minute commute to Chicago. Nice executive home on a nice piece of property. But he goes to Charlotte, and almost on a whim, him and his wife buy a home there, and they come back to their place in Chicago, and then they decide, well, let's put it on the market. And don't you know, a year later, it still hadn't sold. Lots and lots of traffic, but everybody's saying, oh man, it's kind of dated. I guess there's like green avocado appliances still.
Yeah.
So he makes a painful decision, pulls it off the market, spends a year and a lot of money to bring it up, to current standards, modern standards. And then puts the house back in the market. 2.5 years now have totally elapsed. And he sells the home, and he remembers feeling bitter. He
Okay.
feels like he's been taken advantage of by the buyer. And what he's thinking about is that, why didn't I do this 5 years ago? I could have enjoyed this home for the last 5 years, enjoyed a modern, updated home, and then still sold it at a time where it was, very presentable to the marketplace. And so
Mhm.
how that relates to our conversation today is you don't have to sell a business. You get to choose when you sell, but do it at a time where the business has been optimized to where it's at its maximum value. And that usually means that you've got time and money freedom, the business owner, meaning that you don't need to be involved in the business every day. And so that you do that by design, you do that proactively, and you can do it on your own, but it's always better to have a guide, a Sherpa, to help you figure out how to get from wherever you are in your business to that place where you're free to go to the beach every day if you want, go golfing every day. And it's kind of a thought exercise. What would have to be in place so that you would only have 1 hour a week to speak to someone in your business, and in the hour you would know enough about the business, about what was working, what wasn't working, and what needed to be done to fix it, and to get that done through someone other than yourself? If you can get your business to that place, your business is probably at its optimal value in the marketplace. That's when it's going to be most attractive to acquirers. And coaching, to come back to your question, Scott, is there's a framework, there's a process that'll help you get from wherever that you are today in your business to a place where that could be true for you.
Well, there's a couple of things that I really like in there. The one about just framing that question to yourself of how would you set your business up so 1 hour a week you could invest that time to connect with that key person that would give you all the information, and then be able to act on whatever decisions you need to make from that information.
Mm.
That might be the single question that an entrepreneur owner could ask themselves to know exactly how far along their business is to being
Yeah.
saleable.
Yeah, and what that means to the acquirer is that they can see the business without your day-to-day presence, and what that likely means is that you won't have to work out an earn-out period. And so most people on the call would know that an earn-out is when the owner is required to stay in the business for a period of time, sometimes a year, sometimes two, and earn or put at risk part of the purchase price, because the acquirer says, well, I need you in the business to make the transition happen. And now the business that you used to own, you're now an employee, and nobody wants that. And so how do you avoid it? Well, build a business that's ready to sell.
Their question that this kind of segues to, that is on your website, which when I was doing kind of the research for putting our questions together really resonated with me as a business owner, is what's the purpose of your business, right?
Yeah, so I'm going to give you an answer which is a little bit counterintuitive, and the answer I'm going to give you is not really the one that's applicable if it's a 50 million, 100 million business. There's lots more complexity. There's more complex ownership, capital structure, et cetera. But if you're a business that's like in the $5-10 million space, the real purpose of your business, Mr. or Ms. Owner, is to give you the life you want. None of us were born to business. We were born to live. And so the first part you'd want to work out is, what exactly do I want out of my life today and over the next year or the next decade, depending on where you are in your career? And then the question becomes, well, how do I design my business so in fact that's what it gives me? Your business is a vehicle which should be designed to give you the life you want. Now, of course, you're not going to likely share that with your banker or with your team or with your customers. Obviously, you wouldn't quite do that. But in fact, the real purpose of your business, Mr. or Ms. Owner, is to give you the life you want. And so coaching is partly designed to help you figure that out. What do I want out of my life? And then secondly, well, how do we design the business so that's what it gives you?
Yeah. And I think that, that when I read that on your site, I'm like, yep, that's it. Like, you nailed it, just nailed it. Because oftentimes as business owners, like, okay, we're drilling down to the profit, or we're drilling down to the next customer, or we're, handling staff issues or whatever. It's like, this is the purpose of my business. It's like, no, especially when you're in that space that you said, kind of that under $10 million a year in revenue. The purpose, you're the primary shareholder, but the purpose is to give you what it is that you're trying to achieve in your life. And the business caveat to do that, right? It's the catalyst. Framing it that way and thinking about it that way can really change things. And I think that a lot of people, when they think about selling their companies, especially when they're coming to us, they're coming to us at a stage of frustration.
Right.
It's like, I want to sell my company because I'm frustrated with dealing with staff, or I want to sell my company because I need more time to spend with family, whatever it might be. But maybe we just talk about a little bit about those things that you see that are hanging owners up, that are giving that frustration in their company, that is maybe solvable without even getting a sale.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So most of the owners I work with are challenged around one or all three of these things, which is time, team, or money. And you've kind of hinted at a bit of that. So
Mhm.
time sounds like if you're an owner who's saying, I've got too much to do and not enough time to do it, I can't get everything done. If I don't do it, it won't get done. Those are kind of time issues. With team, you're probably thinking, why can't I hire the right team members? How come I can't get them to do the work at the level I need? Why isn't the culture that I want? And then money usually has two kinds of dimensions to it. One side of money is I need better accounting, metrics, KPIs, a dashboard. That's part of what you want to have in place if you're going to have that 1 hour phone call that we were talking about. And
Yes.
then the other side of money, of course, is the one that's most common is I need more money. I need better sales and marketing. So it's typically one or all of those things. What I know to be true, Scott, is that often business owners are the kind of people that are, they're kind of got their head down and they're just working through and drilling through. And that's what makes entrepreneurs. What coming back to the theme of your business is designed to give you the life, what often an owner needs to get to a place where they recognize that they're okay with working as much as they are, but what they're missing out on is the real reason you want to change.
Mhm.
If you're working 70 hours a week and you haven't been to one of your kids' hockey games or baseball games this year because you've been working that hard, well, then your business is not serving your life. And, you won't change just because you're feeling like you're working 70 hours, but you will want to change if you're not getting the life you want and,
Mhm.
not going to your kids' games or that's likely going to have some pressures in the home life as well, if that's what's going on. When it comes to team, let me tease you a little bit. I've asked this question lots of times of owners. If you could start your business again from scratch, from the ground up,
Yes.
and you could hire your team again, let's imagine you've got 20 people on your team. How many of them would you rehire?
That's a good question.
And the most common answer I get is about 50%. And
Yeah.
so that's got to like godsmack. You mean to tell me half your team are not at the level you need and they're, aggravating your customers or aggravating each other. And so many owners don't get the culture they want. They get the culture they deserve.
Yes.
And because they kind of leave it to chance, they kind of leave it as a byproduct of what you do. And in fact, culture is the foundation of your business. If you get the culture right, everything else works, right?
Mhm.
So focus on the culture. Don't you get what you tolerate, and if you're tolerating that bottom five, the bottom half of your group, the bottom 50%, then you're likely tolerating a lot of things that are getting in the way of getting you the real results that you wish to get. So what would you have to put in place so that you get the culture you wish to have? And that largely means better systems around how you manage your team.
Yeah. And that's that I found that in my own experience as well. It's like once you set that foundational culture, which is something that most owners don't think about doing and leave off the plate because it does not, maybe it's because it doesn't provide immediate results. Like you can see immediate results by, maybe pushing the sales team or getting more marketing out there. It's like, okay, more business came through the door. You don't see that immediate results from setting up the culture. That kind of happens over time, and then you just have more people rowing in the right direction. And
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. So you have a culture.
Yeah, this is yeah.
Just getting 3 people together, 10 people together, 20 people together, there's a culture in place because that's how humans uh, conduct themselves.
Hmm.
But if you are proactively designing it, shaping it, managing it, it's not going to be the culture you really truly wish to have. And so most people kind of think when they think about culture, they think it's sort of an oofy poofy,
Yes.
cherry on top of the cake kind of thing. But in fact, it's the reverse. It's the foundation. If you get the culture right, everything else becomes easier because
Yeah.
then how we conduct ourselves with each other, how we treat customers, how we treat suppliers, there's a set of rules around it. I'm going to tell another story that might put it into perspective. Let me just tease you a little bit. You're going to
Yeah.
go to a restaurant and you're celebrating something really important. So you order a really expensive bottle of wine, most expensive bottle of wine you've ever ordered.
Mm-hmm.
And the server brings it to you and offers you a bit to taste. And you pick up the glass and you notice, oh my, the glass is not dirty, it's filthy.
Okay.
Well, what would you expect the restaurant to do? Well, of course, replace the wine, even though it's just a 1 ounce pour. It's the most expensive wine you've ever ordered. They probably ought to make good on the fact they just wrecked or, kind of ruined what could be one of the most important celebrations. So they better comp something. So here's my point. The wine, the content is the best you've ever ordered. And yet the context, the glass, the rules of the game, the culture weren't appropriate. So it doesn't matter how good the content was. Or, hey, you can teach someone to shoot a puck, slap shot, wrist shot, skate, backwards, forwards, body check. If I don't teach you the rules, you can't play hockey.
Yeah.
You can only go skating. So culture is a way of saying, what are the rules we have in the workplace of how we're going to conduct ourselves? If you like hockey, then you'll recognize, if you like golf, if you like any sport, it is both the sport and the rules that make it so attractive.
Yeah. And then, I mean, the rules are really the foundation of what's allowing you to make those proper decisions.
Exactly. Everything then becomes done inside the framework of the context that you've created for yourself.
Which can maybe kind of roll us over to the one thing that we haven't dug a little bit deeper on, which is the time, right? So we kind of based on the money and your like setting your KPIs up and your team, which is like really the foundation layers, like the culture.
Yeah.
What about the time element?
Yeah, so most people organize their time in a way that they fill their time with whatever gets presented to them. Sort of, they fill their calendar from bottom up, and as a result, they'll often feel like they're playing whack-a-mole or a hamster on a wheel, or running around like a pinball or something. And the answer to that is to have a rethink about how you organize your time. And what I mean by that is that you start from the top down. And what I'm describing is a thing known as time blocking or a default calendar. And what the exercise is to, first of all, what are the most important results I need to get this week? And how does that compare to the results I'm looking to get in the next quarter, and mesh that together? Then ask yourself, what do I got to do? What activity do I have to do? And then how much of that activity? And then how do I map my time so it matches those priorities? So let me tease you a little bit. Would you get on an airplane if you knew the pilot didn't have a navigation plan? Who would do that? Nobody would do that. Yeah. Are you living your life? Are you working through your week without a navigation plan of how you're going to get to what you want as an outcome for the end of the week? So that's what a default diary does, is it creates a system where you can map your time to match your priorities. And here's the hard thing about priorities. It's focus. Yeah. And focus means if you have 150 priorities, you know how many priorities you have?
No. Like none. Yeah. Yeah.
It's a paradox. Yeah. So here's the thing. You can have maybe 3. Yeah. And what that means is you're going to say no to 147 things. Yeah. And that's hard, because you look at any one of the 147, you're going to say they're kind of shite. They should be better. They could be better. But if you try to move the needle on 150 things, nothing's done. Yeah. You're just scrambling, bouncing around. So Warren Buffett, Bill Gates, and Steve Jobs are all known for the answer to this question. What's the key to success? It's focus. And focus is not what you say yes to. Focus is what you have to say no to. And when you do a default diary, you get very clear about what you say yes to. And as a result, there's a bunch of things you don't have time to do. You have to say no to. It ultimately, well, here's the last thing I want to say about that. You are the product of your calendar. You are a perfect reflection of your calendar, and calendars never lie. So if you're happy with your results, awesome. If you're not, then I can promise you, you're not applying yourself in a way on your calendar that's getting the outcomes that you're looking for.
Yeah, I can't agree with you enough. I was for a while, a brief stint, just to kind of see behind the curtain. I became a city councilor, and so I did that for 4 years, right? And we have our strategic planning session every year. And each year, you go through that and you have, 7 people around the table, which is difficult enough. And as the companies get larger, they kind of get to that point. We have 7 decision makers, And when we were finished our strategic plan, we had over 100 things that were
Yeah.
important to the community. And
Yeah.
like, good luck, right? I said, why don't we just try three? Let's do three. Let's do one. But then no one could
Yeah.
agree on the one, right? So I think that can maybe go to our next question that I had for you, which is around leadership and
Right.
that piece of, which I think is maybe the more difficult one. And you speak to it. It's like, if you want your company to be better, you need to be a better leader, which is kind of
Yeah.
a tough pill to swallow. Maybe speak to that a little bit.
Yeah. So here's a little confession, a dirty little secret. All business coaching is personal coaching in disguise. Or if you put it a different way, if the owner wants a better business, first the business needs a better owner.
Yeah, tough. Yeah.
And that's you. And so that's usually around your leadership, communication, and delegation skills. But it can also be about the set of beliefs that you have, the values that you have, the culture that you're working in. Ultimately, an example of what I mean by that is so many owners, if I were to ask them, hey, what's the first few words that come to mind when I say the word salesperson?
Mm-hmm.
I've asked that question of thousands of people, and it's amazing how many times you're going to hear things like car salesman or sleazy or manipulative. And yet here's the thing, all of us who are business owners are salespeople.
Mm-hmm.
And even if we're not directly on the sales line, we're persuading people all the time. And if you have in your subconscious that that's a sleazy, manipulative thing you're doing, it's going to get in the way of your ability to be effective.
Yeah.
And so much of coaching is helping people get to a place where their self-limiting beliefs get identified and recreated in a way that makes it more that supports the goals that you have.
Mm-hmm.
Another that's interesting is what's the first few words that come to mind when I say the word money? Well, first of all, people have associations about that. And, lots of people think about spending or bills or not enough or freedom. Those are very common answers. But what is money? What is money? Well, the fact of it is, Webster says money is an abstract concept backed by confidence. So, in fact, money is not anything except what we believe to be true about it. And so the average employee thinks about earning a salary. A solopreneur thinks about making money. That's a different verb there. A business owner thinks about receiving profits. Again, there's an arm's length third party entity. An investor thinks about return on investment, and an entrepreneur, a true entrepreneur, doesn't work for money. Money works for them.
Yeah.
And so when you think about, everyone knows the story, the average middle class person, purpose of money is to spend. They win the lottery. 5 years later, they're broke.
Yeah.
Because they've spent it all.
Yeah.
If I were to give, if it was Warren Buffett who got those winnings, he wouldn't be thinking about spending. His first instinct would be, how do I put this to work? How do I get this money working for me?
Mm-hmm.
And so it's an example of you can't operate at the level until you've learned to have the mindset that makes it possible for you to. And so the last thing I want to say about it is so many business owners don't own a business, they own a job.
Yeah.
That's got the company name on the front door. And so you can't truly be a business owner unless your mindset is evolved to the place where you see your business as a separate entity from yourself. And when you do, you're on the first part of the journey of getting that business to a place where it's going to be very attractive to a buyer.
Yeah. I try in these interviews, I try and pull out the stuff that resonates with me at least, and I think maybe will resonate with the audience. But until you believe that your business is a different entity than yourself, it's quite hard to really make that move.
Yeah, and so it's the underlying thing that an owner has to think about, so they get to a place where they can have that 1 hour phone call.
Oh, the 1 hour phone call. Never forget that. That's going to
Yeah,
stick.
exactly.
I like that.
Yeah.
One of the big things that comes up and has come up throughout the summit is delegation. So it's like, sometimes I have been asking everyone kind of what's the one thing for them, and sometimes I get the response, delegate, 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 right? That was Earl Whittle's response. And so you touched on that one of the issues that owners have as far as they're growing in that leadership and like kind of strengthening the
Right.
leadership muscle is improving their ability to delegate. How would you
Yeah.
suggest they do that for your attendees that are on the call?
Wow, boy, that's a spool of yarn that's got lots of different
Maybe
pieces.
just take a little bit of the yarn out.
Tease that out a little bit, but
Yeah.
um, conceptually,
Mm-hmm.
the idea of delegating starts with this idea. Systems run your business, people run your systems, you lead your people. And so if you think about your business as the people in the business run my business, then as people come and go, so does my business. It rises and falls on the quality of the people that I have. If systems run my business, then my system is stable and robust, and I just need to help people get people to run those systems. So let me give you an example. How do they get those French fries to taste the same, whether they're made in Moscow, Hong Kong, or your hometown? They're made by a 16-year-old whose parents can't get him or her to clean their bedroom. How do they do that?
Yeah.
They have great systems. We make French fries. This is how we do it. We've got a recipe. Here's the process. Here's how we have enough inventory. In fact, McDonald's has even got systems around how they produce the potatoes. So, the other way that I want to think about it is as your business grows, how you think about yourself has to change. So let's say you're the captain of a Navy boat that's, say, 50 feet, and there's 10 people. Your crew is 10. You're going to be down in the engine room from time to time. You'll have tools in your hands. Now let's make you the captain, same job. This time it's 150 feet, and it's 100 people on board. Your crew's now 100. How often are you in the engine room? If you're in the engine room with tools on, you are not performing adequately as a captain because you're not properly delegating authority, not properly delegating, not properly teaching, supporting, training. Now let's make you the captain of an aircraft carrier, and this time you've got 2,000 people.
Yeah.
Well, if you're in the engine room, it better be because you're giving somebody a ceremonial certificate for 20 years of service. So what most business owners think of as delegation is in fact abdication. What that means is that they just simply ask somebody to do something, but they don't properly communicate, support, describe their expectations, and do that in a way where people evolve from where it's do exactly as I say, all the way through to this is your area of responsibility now, and you don't need to check with me. There's a process that you get from that place to this place.
Yeah. I think that's the abdication word there resonates because we think about delegation like, okay, I'm just going to find somebody to do this, and I'm just going to tell them to do it, and away they go. And that is, likely to probably 100% chance of failure because you
Yeah.
want the person up for success.
So Scott, what really ought to happen is you might tell somebody what to do, as you've said, and the first thing you want that person to do is to describe back to you in the form of a standard operating procedure what they've understood you've asked them to do. And when you get that SOP back in your hands, you'll be able to say, yeah, that's exactly what I want done. And you can then take that SOP and give that to any other reasonable person out there, and they would be able to reproduce it time and again, time and again, time and again, because it isn't just this kind of, vaguely, loosely understood thing between two people. No, we'll commit it to a system, and then the system will support our behavior time and again. And so to summarize, you really have to embrace the idea that systems run my business, people run the systems, and I lead your people. That's really when you get to a place that the business is optimal.
Yeah, for sure. I think when that kicked me in the face, the hardest was, I don't know how many years I have to go back now for this, but we had our team. I had my little company running, and I thought it was doing pretty good. And I decided, okay, I wonder if my people know what I think they're here for. And so I gave everyone a little cue card. I said, just write down what your job is here. And when they came back, there was one person of our team of 20 that like, oh, they know their job, which just reflected on me that I'm not properly training. I don't know the systems, I don't know the culture, and none of that set up. Because if they don't even know what their job is, they can put it on a cue card. It's like, yikes, right? Like, how effective is my business going to be?
Well, Scott, that's a great takeaway for people on the call. Go and go to your team tomorrow, give them a set of cue cards. I'd like you to define how you understand your job. Let's come back and have a chat about it. And I think you'll find most owners will recognize there's a gap between what's understood and what their expectations are. And that's where a lot of frustration lies. That gap is a bucket filled with frustration.
Yeah, it's about closing that gap.
Yeah,
Okay, so let's shift a little bit to and we'll talk a little bit about the value builder system and just
right.
how you're using it in your practice. And just for people that, because I was part of the system for a while, and it's John Warlow created the system, and it's a really good system. But it touches on like these 8 key drivers of value for companies that are owners that are really trying to prep their company for sale. And I know it's
Yeah.
something that you do and you've been doing for 5 years. So
Yeah.
just like let's touch on that a little bit.
So the value builder system is a way of codifying or bringing some structure around this question. What is important to an acquirer? How does an acquirer, a buyer, think about your business? And there's 8 things that are key to that acquirer. Things like financial performance. One of the modules is a thing called the Switzerland structure. How much is your business dependent on a single customer or a single supplier or a single team member? You've got key customer risk as an example. If any single customer represents more than 30% of your business revenue, that's an example of key customer risk.
Mm-hmm.
So all of which is that to say the process as you would have an opportunity to evaluate your business relative to the 8 drivers.
Mm-hmm.
It produces an outcome. On average, we've done about 50,000 of these assessments. Typically, a business scores in the range of 50.
Mm-hmm.
A typical business would sell for 3 times EBITDA, 3 times profit. Of course, it depends on the business. This is a really rough guide.
Yeah.
If that business against the 8 drivers can get the score from 50 to 80, that business typically will sell for 6 times EBITDA, 6 times profit. And so the idea is to get out of your own skin, so to speak, get you outside of your business, view the business through the lens, through the eyes of an acquirer, and then to do the things that would optimize your business. A really rough example is if you're selling a home, many people would stage a home. They would, do the things that it takes so that it looks attractive to a buyer. And so in this rough metaphor, it's the same thing as staging the business, but it's in a much more robust way. It isn't sort of putting paint on the wall. It's looking at your business in a way that makes it as robust as, ultimately a buyer's assessing risk. How likely is it going to be that when I buy this business that I can operate the business and achieve the same level of profit, the same level of success, and in fact, how likely is it going to be that I can actually improve on the profitability of the business? And so there's a series of modules that we would work through that would help you evaluate your business relative to those 8 drivers. And select the 2, 3, 4 where the greatest opportunity is for you to make the business more saleable, more attractive, and more valuable to you, and more attractive to the buyer.
Yeah, I think the tools, the analogy of using the house, I think is really good because, and I'm even myself, I always try and think of ways to communicate this to sellers of like how prepared is their business. And I mean, the value driver system is good because it gives you a number. It says, okay, if you think of it as like a preparedness level, it's like, okay, on the preparedness, you're 50, and not everyone's going to get to, it's like almost impossible to get to 100, but if you get to that 80, then you're in a really good spot, right? And when you think of it like a house, I like to think, okay, here's the house, and has landscaping been done? Or is it a 4-bedroom or a 5-bedroom house? Or is it, a trailer? Or,
Yeah,
is it just the foundation that's been poured really, and the entrepreneur's like struggling away trying to get the framing up still, right? And
yeah.
there's not a lot of tools out there that really can show someone visually where they're kind of at and like in the key spots that they need to address, right?
Scott, you've just inspired me to recall a story. I bought a house I'm in Vancouver. I bought a house in a well-to-do, leafy kind of suburb of Vancouver. I bought the house for in the early 2000s for around $430,000. And the two people who had lived there, the husband and wife, had lived there for 35, 40 years. And in preparation for moving out, they got a 40-foot container. And when they filled that up with the debris of 30 years worth of collecting, they went and got another one.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then I bought the house. I spent a year and $100,000 updating the home and making it fresh and modern, and sold it for $750 a year later.
Yes.
Mr. Business Owner, Ms. Business Owner, your business is the equivalent of that. Now, I did the work in this case and reaped the reward, and these people sold the house at a time when it was not really at its best, but they were, at a place where they're moving into an old age home and no longer able to live independently. So it's a metaphor, but your business is very much the merits of this story are very much applicable to your business. Get the business ready for sale so that whenever you wish to sell it, it's at its optimal best. And there's a bit of a truism that says businesses don't get sold, they get bought. And
Yes.
what that means is the best time for you to sell your business is when someone else comes knocking on the door and says, I like your business so much, I want to buy it. Then that business is way more valuable than the other one where you're struggling to find a marketplace for your business.
For sure. And that's kind of, I was going to ask that question. You've almost touched on it a little bit. But what's the suggestion for that business owner who, their house is not in order. They recognize that, they've been at the summit. They okay, there's a lot of work I have to do, but I'm just exhausted.
Yeah.
Like that's a tough one.
Boy, it sure is. And if you've mentally checked out, that is about I'm going to say it's the worst place you can be from a negotiating point of view, because first of all, your business is not likely has got some holes in terms of its productivity, and your negotiating position is going to be undermined by the fact that it's going to become evident that you've checked out. And so there isn't an easy answer to that question. And the best answer, and the one that we're both, urging you to consider, is don't get to that place.
Yeah.
Have it ready to go before you get to that place, so that when or if you do, you get to pull the pin at a time that suits you best. If you're at that place, this will seem a little self-serving, but that's the kind of place that I find lots of people that I start working with.
Yeah.
I'll just tell you a story. I was working with a client named Fred. He's owns a manufacturing facility. He's a hard driving kind of guy. He's like 5'9". He weighs 250 pounds. That's because he's all muscle. He's probably less than 10%. You get a picture of a guy.
Yeah.
And he got to a place where he was working 70, 80 hours a week, including sleeping on the couch in his office at least 2 days a week. And one day his wife said to him, your business is your mistress. If you don't do something about it, I will. And that's when this client got to a place where he said, oh man, I can't put up with this. And I've been struggling and I can't figure this out. And so if you're at that place, getting someone to help you, to get a guide, to get a Sherpa, someone to support you through that process of shifting to where you feel like you've just lost control of the business and lost control of your life, to a place where you ultimately, I can tell stories about guys who have got to a place where business is fun and now they go with great joy. It doesn't have to be that way. You can get it back in control. But hey, look, if you're inside the frame, it's hard to see the whole picture.
Yeah.
Get someone outside of yourself to help, to act as your guide, to act as your Sherpa, someone who's been there. Experience is a great teacher, but it's expensive and takes time. Get some leverage, find someone who's done the journey and can help you accelerate, getting your business to the place where you want it to be.
Yeah. I wonder what the challenge is, because like for me, it did take a while to come around to getting different coaching and kind of investing into, myself in that arena. And it's just maybe our entrepreneurial mindsets, like, charge, do it alone.
Yeah, Scott, what's true is that it didn't become a thing for Fred. He knew he was working too many hours, but
Hmm.
like you're saying, he's an entrepreneur. He's got his head down. He's a bull in a china shop, just determined, persistent, lots of grit.
Yep.
Um, and he was willing to do it again and again and again. And it wasn't until it started to affect his life.
Yeah.
When his wife said to him, you got to do something, that's when he realized, I need to get help because my life is going to start unraveling unless I do something. So what's the purpose of business? Is to give you the life you want.
Yeah.
Fred's a great guy, bright. Like so many of the people I work with, they're great at their profession. They're great lawyers and doctors. They're great electricians and plumbers.
Hmm.
It took them 7 years to get the degree, 5 years to get a Red Seal ticket.
Mm.
The physiotherapy guys that I work with, they spent 7 years to get a physiotherapy training to become physiotherapists. And in that time, they had an hour of business training.
I know, it's criminal. I mean,
So
yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
So, if you started your craft, your profession, your trade with the idea of starting a business, well, you spent 7 years getting your profession.
Hmm.
Give yourself some grace. It's going to take a while to get a business education at the same time, and it's just as important. If you're going to be a physiotherapist and work in a hospital, well, you don't need business training. If
Yes.
you're a physiotherapist who opens a clinic and then think, oh, gee, I just got to be a better physiotherapist and this business is going to be better. Well, it doesn't work that way.
No.
So
No.
here's the thing: I won't help you be a better lawyer or physiotherapist. I'll help you have a better practice.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Um, One of the questions that I'm asking everybody on the summit is if there was one thing that you were really to drill down to that you would say is foundational and the most important for a business owner to achieve success if they're going to sell, what would that one thing be? And also, like, I'll add the caveat that I know, and I say this to everybody, I know there's not one thing, like you have to do a whole bunch of things, but what do you think is the most important?
Man, oh man, that's got lots of bits to that piece. But
Yeah.
Stephen Covey wrote a book called The 7 Habits. One of the 7 habits is start with the end in mind. Um, start your mission with a clear expectation of what you want it to look like at the end.
Hmm.
And Scott, you and I both know John Warlaw, who wrote a book called Built to Sell. And that's very much the principle of start with the end in mind. Start your business with the idea of what do I want it to look like?
Yep.
How do I craft, create, design this business so that ultimately I'm in a place where it's ready for sale. So start with the end in mind, build it to sell.
Ah, that's
That's
so
a
funny.
big conceptual kind of answer, and maybe not that it's sort of the nitty gritty that you were thinking about, but if there's a principle that would help you think about, Scott, the answer to your question is start with the end in mind.
It's funny you say that because the one of the last question that kind of had for us today was how important do you feel it is that the owner like has that future vision of what they need before they go to sell? So I think we just kind of answered that one, which is
Yeah,
fantastic. Yeah,
it's very important, is I
yeah,
guess the short answer.
yeah. So John, do you think there's anything we've left on the table here that we haven't talked about you think attendees should, have in their mind or
Oh man, there could be hundreds and dozens of
yeah.
things, but I think we've crafted a picture of some of the things that a business owner is probably experiencing and thinking about, and hopefully that'll give you some ideas and insight and some inspiration to take the next step in your entrepreneurial journey.
Fantastic. Well, thanks so much for being, on the call and coming into the Exit Plan Summit. For our VIP members, all your information is there. It's kind of direct access. But for those
Awesome.
that are just going to, listening and watching kind of live, best way to contact you, LinkedIn, or what would you suggest?
It's real easy. It's John at w5coaching.com. And even better, if you want to have a short 15-minute chat, go to www.timewithjohn.com. Timewithjohn.com. That'll hook you into my calendar. Should be easy to remember, timewithjohn.com. And we can have a chat. If you've got a question, I'm happy to answer it. if you want to talk some more about what all of what we've been talking about, I'd be happy to talk about that as well.
Fantastic. Thanks again, John, for being involved, and we'll see you in a bit.
My pleasure. Thanks, Scott, for having me.